Hello, I'm glad you're here. Today I want to talk to you about lubrication. Proper lubrication is very important and something we should all be concerned about. What's going on, guys and gals? Thank you very much for stopping back in. If you're new to the channel, thank you very much for stopping in as well. Hopefully you enjoy, and hopefully by the end of this video you're hitting the subscribe button and the little bell as well, because we got a lot going on this summer and you don't want to miss it. So let's talk about lubrication. Proper lubrication is a very, shall we say, touchy subject. Okay, let's not say it's a touchy subject, but it is an important subject, and of course we're talking about motor oil. Discussing brands of motor oil can be a touchy subject in itself, and there's a lot of brand loyalty, and there's a lot of back and forth, which one's better, which one's worse, which one's good for this, which one's good for that. All sorts of topics of discussion revolving around engine oil. So let's just talk about oil today in more general terms. I get a lot of questions on YouTube here and also on Instagram from folks that are kind of just getting into the car world, which is really exciting. We're going to keep this speed culture moving forward, right? But they generally have some pretty basic questions, questions that a lot of you may already know, or it's just kind of second nature to you. So maybe some of this will be not as informative, or not really information that you necessarily care about. But for those of you that are new kind of to the car world, I just want to get started in talking about some of the basics around motor oil. What is it? What do the numbers mean? What are some of the better brands on the market? How often should you change your oil? That's kind of what this video is going to be. So let's just move forward with it. And despite the fact that I drive an Infiniti Q50 2015 style, this discussion will obviously pertain to every vehicle on the road. So if you happen to drive a Mustang or a Camaro or a Honda or Nissan, whatever, a Porsche, this is all relative. So the fact that there are so many different brands of oil on the shelf at the store, and not only just brands, different levels of each brand, it can be very confusing. And not to mention the fact that there's numbers on these bottles. So what the hell does all this mean? So the numbers you'll see are generally like something like 5W30 or 5W20, 10W30. The W means winter, really, or cold weather. So that first number refers to the viscosity of that oil at cold weather temperatures, or at cold start. So the lower the number, the lower the viscosity, or the thinner the oil is. Now it seems obvious that in low temperature climates, or in cold weather times of year, you want that oil to be thin, so the engine doesn't have to work very hard to push it up in to lubricate all of the different components. Having a thick oil in cold temperatures is going to put a lot of strain on the engine. It's going to prevent that oil from working its way into all the little nooks and crannies and all the crevices, and that's going to eventually cause issues over time. So having the proper viscosity at cold weather temperatures for your specific vehicle is very important. Second number in line, the 5W30, the 30, as you might imagine, represents the viscosity of that oil at operating temperatures, or basically 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So there are different additives in oils that cause different reactions, and one of them helps determine the viscosity of the oil at operating temperatures. So again, you might want an oil that's thin because it's cold in the mornings, and it's difficult to get your car to start in the morning, but it can warm up to, say in South Carolina, for example, where I'm at, it might be 25 degrees in the morning, in the early spring, but it might end up being 80 degrees in the afternoon, and you're driving in rush hour traffic. So your engine oil goes from really cold, below freezing temperatures in the morning, to super hot, near overheating situations in the afternoon, and your oil has to be able to handle that and ensure that your engine is operating properly. And that's why your specific vehicle is designated a specific oil to use, and you want to make sure that you check with your manufacturer specifications, check with the dealership. Oftentimes there's going to be a tag in your engine bay that tells you the proper oil to use for your particular engine. It's important to follow those guidelines, and there's always those folks out there that want to switch things up a bit. They might live in super cold weather climates, and they feel like their engine or their car is really hard to start in the morning, so they want less viscous oil. Maybe instead of a 5W20, they go to an OW20, or whatever the case may be, but they want that very thin characteristic in cold weather early morning startups. Maybe they live in southern Florida or in Houston, Texas, and it gets super hot and they don't think 5W20 is good enough. They want a little thicker oil for operating temperature, running in traffic and pushing the car in situations like that. So they want to go to a 5W30. Generally, it's probably okay and they'll probably be just fine, but the tolerances and the specifications of engines these days are so tight and so tightly engineered that I would recommend sticking with the manufacturer's recommended oil. But again, do your research, do what makes you comfortable, but that's just my recommendation. The other thing to point out is that there are different types of oils. So there's conventional oil, which are used in older vehicles, and by older I mean even up into the early 2000s vehicles were running on conventional oil. Then there is a synthetic blend, which is basically a partial man-made oil mixed with some kind of natural oils and lubricants. And then there's full synthetic, which most new vehicles are running on these days. It's a 100% synthetic man-made lubricant. Again, check with your manufacturer or check with your dealership and determine what is used in your particular vehicle, because they all have different characteristics and vehicles are going to run differently on each of them. Now, as I mentioned, there are a ton of different oil brands, and some of these major companies have done a great job with their marketing over the years and have really developed some brand loyalty, which causes this portion of the discussion to be quite an interesting debate online. What is the best oil? And again, there's a ton of different levels for each oil, but for this case, to keep things in a general conversation, we'll just lump all of the levels of each brand together. So again, this is something you can research. There's a ton of information online. A lot of these articles are written by fanboys, people that have run a specific brand of oil for a long time and they're going to be partial to it. But you get a sense from all of the different articles. You can find top 5s or top 10 oils, and there are a few that are really consistently towards the top. There are some that you can find out that are outliers. AMSOIL seems to be one of them. You read one article where it puts AMSOIL at the very top. It's the #1 oil on the market. But then the next top 10 list, you don't see AMSOIL at all, or it's toward the bottom. So throw those out. Consistently, however, in all of the lists, there seem to be 2 that are always toward the top. And again, this could be because of branding and quality marketing, or it could be because of the quality of the product. And those 2 are Mobil 1 and Valvoline. I've used Valvoline for most of my life and have had great luck in all of my vehicles, but I currently have Mobil 1 in my Infiniti Q50 currently and have no complaints either. To you Infiniti owners, a real quick side story. When I purchased my Q50, I still had some warranty left so for the first oil change, I actually took it to the dealership for service. They told me that Nissan has said that from this point on, dealerships are supposed to use the Nissan ester oil in all of the cars. However, the service manager told me that they never actually use the ester oil unless the customer asks for it specifically. It's a little bit more expensive, and I've actually heard that it's not that great of an oil. However, they use a Mobil synthetic oil, so to keep it in the family, I chose to go with Mobil 1 for the first oil change that I did myself. However, I think I'm going to go back to Valvoline. So let's just talk about these 2 brands real quick. Valvoline, I believe, was the very first motor oil on the market, even starting back with steam engines, believe it or not. So there's a rich history of research and development and continuous change and an effort to continually improve upon their oils and constantly reformulating and getting better and better and better. Valvoline is known to be superior for high mileage applications. They even offer some sort of engine warranty on vehicles that you can sign up if they have less than 125,000 miles, and they'll warranty the engine, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a neat thing. They're also known for really clean engines that are really clean oils that are really good at preventing engine sludge buildup. And there's a lot of great pluses for Valvoline, not to mention the fact that it's relatively inexpensive compared to some other synthetic oils. I think it's right around $4.50 a quart, which is great. Mobil 1's a solid oil as well. It's probably, I believe it's even the #1 purchased oil in the world. Sponsor or partners for major events. I think it's the official oil of NASCAR, so that says a lot. But again, a lot of it is branding and marketing as well. Mobil 1 has an annual oil change policy, or something like, not necessarily policy, but they say you can change your oil once a year. They've tested cars with 25,000 mile oil change intervals, showing no engine wear, limited sludge buildup. It seems to be a pretty solid oil. Mobil 1 is also developing oils that are really good for turbocharged or forced induction engines, which is actually a really good thing and kind of an interesting thing to get ahead of the curve is. Manufacturers seem to be moving more toward these, like Ford EcoBoost or twin turbo engines like the Q50 has moved to. However, Mobil 1 is a little bit more expensive. I think it's right around $6, or actually when I was purchasing oil, I think Mobil 1 was like $8 a quart. You can get a 5-quart jug for like 29 bucks. I will say that if you're familiar with these VQ37 engines, they always seem to have that little sewing machine kind of singer tick. You especially hear it if you're up against a building idling. You can hear that tick, 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 tick. With this Mobil 1, that was reduced significantly, so I'm pretty happy about that. I've seen people say recently online, however, that Mobil 1 is not as good as it used to be, and it's certainly not worth the price anymore. They used to be really good in terms of the additives that they use, but I guess they're not as high of quality anymore or something. I'm not super familiar on the changes that Mobil 1 has made or Mobil has made over the years, but this is coming from a number of different people on some different car forums, so take that as you will. Changing your oil filter is another thing that we can talk about, and who makes a good filter. That's another subject for another video, but I like to change my filter every time I change the oil. So when should you change your oil? How often should you change your oil? There are guys that are, and gals that are now in the car scene, that were in the car scene many years ago and are used to that every 3,500 mile or every 3,000 mile oil change interval period. That was, of course, with conventional oils, and things have changed. These synthetics, as you could probably tell with the discussion about Mobil 1, every 25,000 miles is fine. I think manufacturers put in their books a lot, every 7,500 or 10,000 miles is sufficient. I think that's a little far for me personally, but there's no need to spend a bunch of money and change your oil every 3,000 miles with these full synthetic oils. It's just not necessary. I like to fall somewhere in the middle. If you like to push your car a little bit and you're kind of a hot rodder, or you run to the mountains on the weekends and drive it a little bit more spiritedly, I would say change oil every 4,000 miles or so. That's what I like to do, 4,000, 4,500 miles, and that seems to work for me. Again, if you're in Miami or you're in Houston or Dallas, it's super hot all the time and you're always in rush hour traffic and idling and stopping and starting and stopping and starting, it may be a good idea to stick around that 4,000 mile interval time period as well. However, if you're someone like my wife that just, although she's a crazy driver, she doesn't have to drive very far to work. There's no traffic. It's just a couple of stop signs and here and there and to the grocery store and whatever the case may be. Every 5,000 or 6,000 miles is probably just fine. Still, being me, I like to change her oil every 4,500 miles or so. But again, that's probably not necessary. It's just something in my brain. I didn't mean to ramble on this long about engine oils, but it's definitely a subject that there's some debate involved in, but it's a subject that a lot of new folks are always asking questions about on the forums and the Facebook groups and things of that nature. So if you're new to the world of cars, hopefully this was a little bit helpful. There's a lot of information out there. If you have still some questions, leave them in the comment section below. I'll definitely respond to them. If you're experienced in this world, or you've used Mobil 1 or Valvoline or other oils, let me know your experiences in the comment section below. I'm definitely interested in hearing them. As I said, this is a topic of debate, and I'm curious to know what everyone thinks. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. Thank you for the continued support. I appreciate it very, very much. We're continuing to grow this channel, and I look forward to the next several months. So thank you all again for following along, and we'll see you in the next video.